Well, amid the new governor's talk of austerity measures like a wage freeze and a spending cap, there's a new coalition of public and private sector unions and community advocacy groups that have launched a new radio ad that focuses on the disparity between booming Wall Street bankers and the struggling middle-class New Yorkers. This 60-second spot hit the airwaves today, and it's going to continue running in the New York City and Albany metro areas through the next week. It is actually the first salvo in what could be a protracted budget battle between select labor unions and the Cuomo administration. My next guest heads an organization that is part of this labor group, which is calling itself a Strong Economy for All Coalition. Bill Easton is the executive director for the Alliance for Quality Education. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
So I want to take a listen to this ad, and I'm right, it's going to run through today through January 11. Is
Correct.
That correct? Okay, and it's a fairly sizable buy. We'll talk about it in a second. Let's take a listen.
Just 3 years after the taxpayer bailout, Wall Street is stronger than ever, while the rest of us take it on the chin. Working New Yorkers have been the backbone of our success for generations. They've always worked hard to make a better life for their families and their communities. Now they deserve a fair shake and a chance to grow strong again.
Okay, so you generally get the picture about where this is going. It's quite clear that it is setting up Wall Street versus Main Street, if you will. Is that what you're trying to highlight here?
Well, what we want to do is have a real discussion among New Yorkers about our economy and what we have to do to fix our economy. So most of us across the state have experienced the worst economic decline since the Great Depression. But Wall Street is celebrating record bonuses and compensation. This year alone, $144 billion, that's billion, not million, $144 billion in compensations and bonuses. That's up from just 3 years ago when it was $57 billion.
Right.
I mean, what happened to the economic collapse? What happened to the Wall Street bailout? If that's the benefits of it, I'm glad to see Wall Street's doing well, but all of us need to have an economic recovery plan, and we haven't got there yet.
Okay, this is sort of nebulous. I mean, you're talking more about an idea and not necessarily about a specific policy proposal. So, for example, the rest of the ad talks about working New Yorkers who've been the backbone of our success for generations. They've worked hard. They need a chance to grow strong again. I mean, that's mom and apple pie. I mean, nobody disputes that. So what are you getting at here?
Well, you know, that is mom and apple pie, but then so are things like good quality schools, like the access to an affordable college education. It used to be mom and apple pie that when you drove to work, you didn't have to worry about breaking your axle in a pothole because our streets were taken care of. It's mom and apple pie to think that our streets should be safe, our parks should be safe, good places for our kids to play in. But if we just try to cut our way out of this fiscal crisis, we've been doing that, and we're paying the price for it. Our schools are hurting, our kids are hurting, our families are hurting, and working New Yorkers need the opportunity to make sure we're going to help them get back on their feet and make a decent living.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. We've heard very clearly from Andrew Cuomo after the inauguration. He had a press conference with reporters, and he said, no new taxes. He said that quite clearly during the campaign. No new taxes. Well, it sounds to me like you're starting an argument for keeping what we know as the so-called millionaires tax, which was a 3-year tax on very wealthy New Yorkers, a temporary personal income tax surcharge that's set to sunset at the end of this year. Is that something that this coalition is pushing for?
Well, certainly many folks who are in this coalition supported that tax to begin with. Right. And certainly we believe it really needs to be taken a hard look at before you would say eliminate that tax. Because really, you can call it what you like, but it's really a tax cut for the wealthy if you do this. This year alone, that would set our budget back $1 billion. Next year, $4 billion. That's a lot of money. In this fiscal climate, it's a lot of money. They're doing well, the wealthiest New Yorkers. They also just had a big windfall because of the tax cut that was implemented in Washington, D.C. That's $8 billion right there of a windfall for the wealthiest New Yorkers. So they're having literally the best economic times ever. And all we're saying is that we have to take a balanced look at this public discussion. Certainly revenues is part of the conversation, but what are we doing? What's the plan for working New Yorkers, their families, their school children? What's the plan to help out typical New Yorkers?
Okay, but again, the governor said in his inauguration speech, well, I want to speak for the people. I want to hear the people and not the special interests. My goal is to have those voices heard, is to work for the people of New York, is to take the argument outside of the Capitol. So when he says that, are you not Are you not buying it? Are you not? What would you have the new governor do specifically to address the $10 billion budget deficit that would not, in your mind and the mind of this new coalition, hurt the kind of people that you're trying to protect?
Well, I think the fact that the governor wants to hear from the people of New York is correct. I believe that what he'll hear from the people of New York is that we have to protect our schools, our communities. We have to not continue the bleeding of what's going on with our middle class, so that, disinvesting in our communities is not going to help them.
But
and
Billy,
you can't just cut your way out of this. So yes,
there
are cost savings and things that the governor should look at. We've identified a number of them in the past. I'm happy to roll out a few others right now including things like currently we have a STAR program that's a tax subsidy, which is a good thing for most people, but it also is about $250 million you could save by not providing tax subsidies for people with $1 million homes or high incomes who don't really need that subsidy. So we should look at every efficiency we can, where we have administrative consolidation in local school districts. That's an area in education. So we have areas that we support for cost savings, and the state needs to find every one of those. But we need to prioritize to make sure that we're not hurting our communities, our kids, our families in the process here, and that's why we need to make sure we just cannot cut our way out of this, and we have to have a plan for economic development and jobs creation.
We should note that a part of your coalition includes the UFT, which is the New York City Teachers Union, and also NYSET, which is the statewide umbrella teachers union. NYSET and UFT did not endorse Andrew Cuomo, and it's pretty clear that there are two areas of the budget that account for most of the spending. It's Medicaid and it's education aid. So are you saying to me that you think that there should be no education aid cuts at all?
Education has taken huge cuts already. Record cuts last year, $1.4 billion. In the last 2 years, the state has reduced its commitment to education by 9%. That's huge, huge. Meanwhile, we have schools, as the governor has pointed out, we have a two-tiered system of education. We have many schools in this state which simply are under-resourced and don't have the opportunity. That's why we had a long, drawn-out court battle that resulted in a settlement to increase funding for those schools. That's been put on the back burner. Yeah. So already education has been suffering, and we're saying that the first thing we should be doing is look at how do we protect our communities. How do we protect working New Yorkers? How do we protect our school children? That should be our first order of business before we say, what do we cut? Okay? I'm not saying there'll be no cuts, but what I am saying is that we have to approach it from the standpoint of how do we protect the quality of our communities? Part of this ad here is also a reaction to the fact that you have a really special interest, the Real Estate Board of New York and the Business Council, which are not. They don't have the mission of looking out after all of New Yorkers. They have the mission, a very important mission for their members, of looking out after the profits of their members. They're doing a good job of looking out after the profits of their members, but that is not necessarily what will profit all New Yorkers, and they're planning to run $10 million in ads. We should not allow that to drown out all of New Yorkers, and that's my concern, is not that the governor won't listen, but that the voices of typical New Yorkers will be drowned out by a $10 million ad campaign.
And this is about a quarter of that, is that correct, for this campaign?
This is about 250,000 that ran just for these ads here.
So a lot less than a quarter.
This is really, that's $10 million, and they're saying maybe more. That's a tremendous amount of money. That is, if you spend a lot of time over in the Capitol, you know that most of the people who are lobbying over there aren't lobbying around things like public education like I do. They're lobbying on the behalf of business interests who only have the interest of making money. That's important for the business of New York, that our businesses can make money, but that's not the full business of the state.
Well, we are going to have a very interesting budget. I don't want to say battle necessarily because we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to also be getting more details in the State of the State on Wednesday, and I'm sure that you will have something more to say then.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, great.